The airport was crowded that morning. Sundar Pichai had just returned from a long series of meetings overseas, and all he wanted was to quietly blend into the stream of passengers and slip out unnoticed. But fate had other plans. He carried only a small black bag, his eyes tired yet thoughtful. Airports always made him feel something deeper. Like every traveler had their own hidden story of leaving, of returning, of waiting. Sundar had walked through hundreds of them, but today felt different. As he moved toward the arrival gates, his eyes caught something that froze him in place. Just a few feet away, standing near the coffee stall, was a woman he once thought he would never see again. Her hair was tied in the same simple braid he remembered. Her posture still carried that quiet strength, and when she turned slightly, Sundar's heart stopped. It was his ex-wife. For years, he had buried that chapter of his life. Their separation was painful, and though he had built success, respect, and a global name, there was always a quiet emptiness inside him whenever he thought of her. But now, here she was, in the middle of an airport thousands of miles away, as if destiny had conspired to bring them face to face. And then Sundar noticed something that shook him even more. Beside her stood two young children, twins, no older than 7. Their laughter echoed faintly in the noise of the terminal as they pointed at a toy shop window. But what struck him like lightning was their faces. Both children looked shockingly familiar. Their dark hair, gentle eyes, even the way they tilted their heads. It was like looking into a mirror of his own childhood photographs. His breath grew heavy. Could it be possible? Were those children his? Memories he had locked away for years came rushing back. He remembered the last time he had seen her, the argument that ended it all, the silence that followed, and the unanswered questions that still haunted him. He remembered how she had walked away without ever asking for anything, not even support, not even closure. Sundar stood frozen, his mind racing. He wanted to walk up to her, to ask, to demand the truth, but his feet felt like stone. Instead, he simply watched from afar, his heart pounding harder than it ever had in a boardroom or under the glare of the world's cameras that the twins pulled on her hands, laughing. And for a moment, she looked down at them with the same warmth he once knew so well. And that warmth, the way she bent, the way her eyes softened was exactly how she used to look at him long ago, when love was enough to fill their world. But then, just as Sundar finally gathered the courage to move toward them, something unexpected happened. A tall man in a gray suit appeared beside her, holding a boarding pass and speaking hurriedly. The twins ran to him, wrapping their arms around his legs. Sundar froze again. Was this man their father, or just someone helping them travel? Questions swirled violently in his mind, and before he could step closer, the loudspeaker announced final boarding for a flight. She picked up her bag, the twins grabbed her hands, and together with the man, they began walking toward the gate. Sundar's throat tightened. He couldn't let them disappear again. He had lost her once. If those children were his, he couldn't afford to lose them too. He dropped his own bag and started walking quickly after them, his heart in his throat, his steps unsteady, yet desperate. But as he reached the security barrier, the guard raised his hand. "Sir, boarding pass, please." Sundar had none. His own flight had landed just minutes ago. He looked past the barrier, watching as she handed her ticket to the agent. The twins clung to her side, their small faces glowing with excitement. The tall man followed closely. Time was running out. Sundar's mind screamed with 100 emotions: love, regret, fear, hope. But above all, one thought echoed louder than the rest. If those children are mine, I cannot let them go without knowing the truth. The agent scanned their passes. The family began walking down the jet bridge. Sundar's heart pounded harder. He had one final chance to call out, to speak her name, to stop her before she vanished into the sky. But if he did, the whole world might witness his most private truth unraveling in public. He took a deep breath, opened his mouth, and then, just as the words left his lips, she turned. Her eyes met his across the crowd. For the briefest second, shock and recognition flashed across her face. Her lips parted as if to speak. The twins looked up at her, then followed her gaze toward Sundar. Their curious eyes locked onto his. And in that instant, Sundar felt it deep in his soul. They looked exactly like him. Before he could move, the boarding gate closed with a final click. She was gone. Sundar stood there trembling, his heart breaking and burning at once. But something told him this was not the end. This was only the beginning. Sundar could not move even after the gate closed. He stood rooted to the spot, his eyes locked on the space where she had just disappeared with the twins and that tall man. The noise of the airport swirled around him, announcements echoing, luggage wheels rolling, people greeting each other, but in his mind there was only silence. He felt like the entire world had faded, and only that moment remained. Hanging heavy and impossible to ignore. For years, Sundar had faced pressure from all sides, the responsibility of leading one of the largest companies in the world, the unending demands of innovation, the eyes of billions watching his every decision. But nothing, not even the weight of those expectations, had ever crushed him the way this sight just had. He had lived with questions about his past, questions he had tried to bury under layers of work and success, but now those questions were no longer whispers in his heart. They were screaming. Who were those children? Why did they look so much like him? Had she moved on completely and built a life with another man? Or was there something more, something he had been blind to all these years? As he struggled to steady his breathing, Sundar felt the sting of regret pulling him back into memories. He remembered the last days of their marriage, the late-night arguments that seemed to circle endlessly, the distance that had slowly replaced warmth. He remembered how he had promised her once during a quiet walk along the lake in their early years, that no matter what life threw at them, he would always choose their bond first. But promises are fragile when weighed against ambition, and those days, ambition consumed him. She had always wanted simplicity, a life where love was louder than success, where family dinners mattered more than boardroom victories. But Sundar had been climbing ladders, chasing dreams so big that he had thought she would understand the sacrifices. Instead, those sacrifices had broken them. The last conversation came flooding back to him. She had stood by the doorway, her eyes red but steady, her voice trembling but firm. She told him she could not live in the shadow of his endless race. She needed peace, and he was chasing storms. She walked away, and Sundar had watched her leave without stopping her, convincing himself it was for the best. At that time, he believed love could not survive in the chaos of his world. But what if she had been carrying a truth he never knew? What if those twins were the truth? The thought made his chest tighten painfully. He leaned against the cold metal, railing by the security barrier, trying to gather his strength. Logic tried to reason with him. Maybe the resemblance was a coincidence. Maybe the tall man was their father and the family she built after him. But his heart refused logic. It whispered, relentlessly, "They are yours." For the next several minutes, Sundar remained there, watching the last passengers board other flights, hoping against all hope that somehow she would return, that perhaps she had missed her flight. But she did not. The gate was closed. The boarding tunnel retracted. The plane pushed back, moving slowly toward the runway. Sundar's stomach sank as he watched it through the tall glass windows. Feeling as though a piece of his own life was being carried away into the sky, the rational side of him urged him to walk away, to accept that some things were buried in the past for a reason. But another voice, one he had not heard in years, spoke louder. This was not over. He quickly reached for his phone. If he could not follow her onto that plane, he had to find out where it was going. His hands trembled slightly as he pulled up the flight information board. The screen listed the flight she had boarded. It was headed to San Francisco. San Francisco. The city where he lived. The coincidence sent chills down his spine. Could it be fate? After all these years, could destiny have brought her back into the same city, into his world, carrying children who might be his own? He closed his eyes for a moment, trying to steady himself. For once, his mind was not filled with code, strategies, or business plans. It was filled with the face of his ex-wife, the laughter of those twins, and the haunting possibility that his life was about to change forever. Determined. Sundar grabbed his bag and rushed out of the terminal. Outside, the air smelled of fuel and rain. He quickly called his driver, asking to be taken home, but his voice carried an urgency the driver had never heard before. As the car pulled onto the highway, Sundar stared out the window, his reflection blurred against the city lights. The closer they got to home, the more his thoughts consumed him. What if she had returned for a reason? What if she wanted him to know? Or worse, what if she never planned to tell him, and he was just an accidental witness to a truth she wanted to keep hidden forever? He thought of his own children, the ones the world knew, the ones he had raised with love and discipline. But if those twins were his, what did that mean for them? Would they feel betrayed, abandoned, forgotten? The very idea tore at him. Sundar had always believed in responsibility, in doing what was right even when it was hard. If the twins were his, responsibility demanded he face the truth, no matter how painful. The car pulled into his driveway, but Sundar did not step out immediately. He sat there for several minutes, lost in thought. Finally, he made a decision. He would find her. He would not let this slip away as he had in the past. This time, he would fight for answers. He spent the night searching. Old contacts, mutual friends, online records. He tried everything. Hours passed. The house grew quiet. But Sundar could not rest. With every lead, his hope flickered, sometimes bright, sometimes fading. Then, just before dawn, he found something. A travel record, her name, her address in San Francisco. His heart raced. She was here, not just in the same city, but in a neighborhood, not far from his own. He leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling, overwhelmed by emotions. Relief, fear, longing, they all collided inside him. But before he could plan what to say, before he could decide how to approach her, another thought struck him. What if she refused to see him? What if she denied everything? What if those twins grew up never knowing him, never knowing the truth? The night had given him clarity. He could not live with those questions. He had to know. The next morning, Sundar stood outside her house. The sun had just risen, painting the street in soft gold. He watched quietly as the door opened and the twins stepped out, carrying small backpacks. Their laughter filled the air, innocent and pure. His breath caught in his throat. He could see himself in them even more clearly now, in the way the boy pushed his hair back nervously, in the way the girl tilted her head when she smiled. And then she stepped out. His ex-wife, her eyes calm, her presence steady, just as he remembered. She looked up suddenly, and their eyes met again. Just like at the airport. Her face paled. The moment hung heavy, filled with unspoken truths. Sundar took a step forward, his voice low but steady. We need to talk. Her lips parted, her hand tightening around the children's shoulders, and in her silence, Sundar felt the weight of years pressing down on both of them. What she would say next could change everything. The morning air was cool, yet Sundar felt heat rising in his chest as he stood only a few feet away from her. The twins clung to her, their innocent chatter fading as they noticed the strange tension between their mother and the man staring at them. Sundar's eyes softened when they glanced at him, two small faces that carried a reflection of his own. For a moment, he forgot the world around him. All he could see was possibility, and all he could hear was his own heartbeat echoing louder than anything else. She tightened her grip on the children, as though shielding them, her face pale but unreadable. Years had passed since he had last looked into her eyes, yet the distance of time dissolved in an instant. He could still read her silence. She was shaken, caught between recognition and denial. Sundar took another step forward. His voice was low, controlled, but trembling with a weight of emotions he could no longer bury. We need to talk. For a long moment, she did not move. The twins tugged lightly at her hands, asking small questions, but she didn't answer. Her eyes remained fixed on him, as though deciding whether this was real or just a ghost from her past. Finally, she spoke, her voice firm, but quiet, carrying a mixture of strength and hesitation. This is not the time, Sundar. Please, just leave. Her words hit him like ice. But he could not let them freeze him into silence this time. Not the time. I waited years without asking, without disturbing your life. But now, I saw them. I saw them at the airport. You can't expect me to just walk away. His voice cracked slightly, his hand gesturing toward the children. They look like me. Tell me I'm wrong. Her face tensed, and for a moment, pain flashed across her eyes, quickly replaced by a practiced calm. She lowered her voice, glancing at the twins. Not here. Not in front of them. With that, she guided the children toward a waiting car parked near the curb. The twins looked back curiously at Sundar, their eyes innocent, unaware of the storm swirling around them. The sight pierced him deeper than any rejection he had ever known. As the car drove away, Sundar stood alone on the sidewalk, the sound of tires fading into the morning air. His chest ached, but inside something unshakable had ignited. She had not denied it. Her refusal to answer had spoken louder than words. He knew. Now he had to confront her. That afternoon, Sundar tried to focus on work, but nothing made sense. Documents blurred, meetings felt hollow, and even the brightest ideas carried no meaning. His mind wandered back again and again to her face, her silence, the twins' eyes. He kept replaying the morning, searching for hidden clues in her expression, wondering what truth she had buried all these years. On the day ended, he made a choice. He would not let her slip away again. The next evening, he returned to her house. Lights glowed warmly inside, casting faint silhouettes on the curtains. Sundar's heart pounded as he stood by the gate. The simple scene, a home filled with laughter, was one he had once dreamed of, but had lost. He rang the bell. Moments later, she opened the door, her expression tightening when she saw him. She stepped outside quickly, closing the door behind her. Why are you here again, Sundar? Her tone was firmer now, carrying the strength of someone who had learned to live without him. He looked at her, his voice heavy with honesty. Because I cannot leave without the truth. If those children are mine, I deserve to know. And they deserve to know. Her eyes flickered, a storm of emotions beneath the calm surface. It's complicated. Life is complicated, Sundar replied, his words urgent but respectful. But avoiding the truth doesn't make it easier. Please, don't hide this from me. Her hands trembled slightly as she crossed her arms, her eyes avoiding his. You left, Sundar. You chose your world, your ambitions, your company. You didn't choose us. The words stabbed deep, but he didn't flinch. He had expected them. I know, and I regret it more than you can imagine. But if those twins are my children, I want to make things right. I don't care how late it is. I will not run from this. Her eyes finally met his, filled with unshed tears. For the first time, her voice wavered. You don't know what you're asking. Sundar stepped closer, lowering his voice, filled with sincerity. Then tell me. Give me the chance to understand. Silence stretched between them, broken only by the faint sound of twins laughing inside the house. The sound made Sundar's heart ache with longing. She closed her eyes for a moment, as if gathering strength. When she spoke again, her voice was soft, almost breaking. Yes, Sundar, they are yours. The words shattered him. His knees weakened, his breath caught, and a strange mixture of joy and grief filled him at once. After all these years, he had children he never knew. Two lives connected to him by blood, yet raised in silence. Away from his presence, he whispered, almost afraid of his own voice. Why didn't you tell me? Tears welled in her eyes as she answered, her voice trembling. Because you weren't ready. Because you were too far gone into your world. And because I couldn't bear the thought of raising them while constantly fighting for your attention against your dreams. I chose peace for them. I chose to protect them. Sundar felt tears sting his own eyes. He wanted to protest, to argue, but deep down, he knew she was not entirely wrong. He had been consumed by ambition, blind to the cracks forming in their bond. Yet the thought that he had missed their first words, their first steps, their birthdays moments, that could never return was unbearable. Please, he said softly, his voice breaking. Let me be part of their lives now. Let me know them. She looked at him with doubt, her heart torn between old wounds and the undeniable truth of his. Plead out before she could answer. The door behind her opened slightly. The twins peeked out, their curious eyes locking onto Sundar again. The boy tilted his head, studying him as though sensing something familiar. The girl smiled shyly, her hand clutching her brother's. Mama, the boy asked, his voice innocent. Who is that man? Her lips trembled. She froze, Sundar's breath caught, his eyes glistening. This was the moment one question from a child that carried the weight of truth. The silence stretched unbearably. The twins waiting, Sundar waiting, the night air heavy with destiny, and just as she opened her mouth to speak, a car pulled up, suddenly in front of the house. The tall man from the airport stepped out, his expression sharp and guarded. He walked quickly toward them, his eyes narrowing at Sundar. The tension cracked like thunder. What is he doing here? The man demanded, his tone protective, almost possessive. The twins ran toward him instantly, hugging his legs, calling out, Uncle Raj. Sundar's heart jolted. Uncle, not father. He looked at her, her face now pale with fear and confusion. In that moment, Sundar realized this story was far more complicated than he had imagined. The air outside the house grew heavy as Uncle Raj stood there, his arms crossed, his presence commanding attention. The twins clung to his legs, their innocent laughter fading into silence as they sensed the tension between the adults. Sundar's heart was racing, his eyes moving between the children, his ex-wife, and this man who seemed to have a protective grip on their lives. Raj's eyes locked on Sundar, sharp and unyielding. What are you doing here? He asked, his voice low but filled with authority. It was not just a question, it was a challenge. Sundar straightened his shoulders, forcing calm into his voice even though his insides burned with urgency. I came to talk. I came for the truth. Raj scoffed, stepping closer, as if putting himself between Sundar and the family. The truth? The truth is you don't belong here anymore. You lost that right when you walked away. Sundar's ex-wife flinched at his words, her eyes flickering with conflict. She glanced at the twins, who were still watching closely, confusion written all over their small faces. She quickly knelt beside them, her voice soft. Go inside, sweethearts. I'll come in soon. The children hesitated, glancing at Sundar. Again with wide, curious eyes, but finally obeyed, slipping back into the house. The door closed behind them, leaving the three adults in the dim glow of the street lights. Sundar's single quote's best voice broke the silence first. Heavier now, way down by emotion. Don't tell me I don't belong here. Those children are mine. I saw it in their eyes, in their smiles. She admitted it. And if that's true, no one, not even you, can erase that. Raj's jaw tightened. His eyes flashed with something. Deeper than anger, something closer to fear. He turned sharply toward her, his voice cutting. You told them? She looked down, her fingers trembling as she held them together tightly. Her voice cracked but carried honesty. I couldn't deny it anymore. He saw them. He had the right to know. For a moment, silence reigned, broken only by the sound of a car passing by in the distance. Then Raj spoke again, his tone harsher, directed at Sundar. You don't get to suddenly appear and claim them now, Sundar. You weren't here when it mattered. I held them when they were sick. I walked them to school. I stayed when you didn't. I'm the one they know. The words stabbed Sundar deeply, but he stood his ground. His voice trembled with both guilt and resolve. You think I don't know what I missed? You think I don't feel the weight of every birthday, every moment I wasn't there? But none of that changes the truth. They are my children, and I will not abandon them again. Raj stepped closer, his eyes narrowing, his voice low and dangerous. Do you even realize what this will do to them? Their world is peaceful now. They're happy. and you showing up with your guilt will rip that apart. Sundar turned to his ex-wife, his eyes searching hers, desperate for connection. Is that true? Do you really believe my presence would hurt them more than help them? Do you believe they don't deserve to know their father? Her eyes filled with tears, torn between the two men, between the one who gave life to her children and the one who had protected them for years. She finally whispered, her voice barely audible, I don't know anymore. The words crushed Sundar, yet they also revealed something he had not fully understood. This wasn't just about him proving he was their father. It was about showing that he was ready to stay, to give them more than his name. Raj exhaled sharply, shaking his head. Leave them alone, Sundar. Go back to your world, your empire. These kids don't need your shadow hanging over them. But Sundar refused to back down. I'm not leaving. Not this time. They deserve the truth. They deserve a father who cares enough to fight for them. Raj's hand curled into a fist, his face hardening. But before the confrontation could escalate further, the front door opened again. The twins stood there, their small hands gripping the frame. The boy spoke first, his voice trembling with curiosity. Mama, why are you crying? His sister followed, her eyes wide. And why is everyone shouting? Be adults. Froze. The children's innocent questions cut deeper than any accusation. Sundar's ex-wife quickly wiped her tears, trying to steady her voice. It's nothing, sweethearts. Just grown-ups talking. But the boy tilted his head, looking straight. That's Sundar. Who is he? Why does he look like us? The question pierced the night like thunder. Raj stiffened, his eyes narrowing. But before he could speak, Sundar's ex-wife stepped forward, her voice breaking. Please, go inside. I'll explain later. But the children did not move. The boy's gaze remained on Sundar, his innocent curiosity refusing to be silenced. Sundar's chest heaved with emotion. He wanted to run to them, to hold them, to tell them everything. But he also knew this moment was fragile, and that went wrong. Move could shatter their trust forever. He knelt slowly, lowering himself to their level, his voice gentle but trembling. I'm someone who cares about you very much. The girl tilted her head, studying him with a soft smile. You feel familiar. Those words nearly broke him. His ex-wife rushed forward, guiding the children back inside quickly, her face etched with pain. Raj followed, throwing Sundar one last glare before shutting the door firmly. Sundar was left alone on the doorstep, the silence pressing heavily against him. His chest ached, but inside, a fire burned brighter. They had seen him. They had felt something and now, no matter how much resistance stood in his way, he knew one truth with absolute certainty. He would not stop until they knew who he really was. Asterisk, the night after the confrontation outside her house, Sundar barely slept. He sat by the window of his study, staring at the city lights, his mind replaying every detail, the twins' innocent questions, the look in their eyes, the way his ex-wife trembled between silence and truth, and Raj's unshakable stance as though he were the true guardian of the children. Sundar felt both powerless and determined, caught in a strange balance of regret and hope for years. He had told himself that the past was buried, that the choices he made were irreversible. But now, faced with two living reflections of himself, he realized the past had never died, only been waiting for this moment. He had missed their first breaths, their first words, their first days at school. The thought cut into him like glass. But he would not miss everything. He would not stand on the sidelines while they grew up without knowing the truth of who they were. The next morning, Sundar made a decision that surprised even him. He canceled his entire schedule. Meetings, conferences, investor calls, all postponed. His assistants were stunned, but he offered no explanation. For once, business could wait. This was more important than any deal, more important than the empire he had built. Instead, he drove quietly to the neighborhood where his ex-wife lived. He parked at a distance, careful not to intrude, but close enough to watch as the twins left for school. When they appeared, carrying their small backpacks, Laughing and talking to each other in that secret language siblings often shared, Sundar felt his throat tighten. He followed them discreetly as they walked to a nearby school with Raj by their side. Sundar kept his distance. But he noticed everything, the way Raj bent down to tie the boy's shoelace, the way the girl clung to his arm as they crossed the street, the way Raj smiled at them with a tenderness that cut Sundar deeply. It was clear. Raj had been there when he wasn't. Raj had been the father figure they knew. The realization was painful, yet strangely humbling. Sundar had spent years commanding respect from the brightest minds in the world. Yet here was a man, unknown to most, who had quietly earned something far greater, the trust and love of two children Sundar now longed to know. Went to school. Bell rang. Raj waved the children off and walked away. Sundar hesitated, then followed him. They ended up at a small cafe nearby, and Raj sat alone, sipping coffee, unaware that Sundar was watching from a corner table. Sundar studied him, his manner, his silence, the weight he carried. He wasn't an enemy, Sundar realized. He was a protector, and that made things far more complicated. Later that afternoon, Sundar returned to the house. This time, he didn't ring the bell. Instead, he left a letter on the doorstep, sealed in an envelope with only her name on it. In the letter, he poured out what words he had never spoken, his regret, his longing, and his promise that he did not come to take the children away, but to be present, to share in the responsibility of raising them. He wrote that he wasn't there to erase Raj, but to embrace the truth. That evening, his ex-wife sat at her kitchen table, reading the letter under the soft glow of the lamp. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she read his words. For years, she had built walls around her heart, convincing herself that Sundar had chosen another life. But now, with every word of his letter, she saw not the man who left, but the man who wanted to return not to her, but to the children he never knew. She folded the letter and placed it in a drawer, her hands trembling. She knew she could no longer keep the twins in the dark, but the fear of what it would mean for their world held her frozen. 2 days later, fate forced her hand. The twins came home from school earlier than usual, their faces lit with excitement. They ran into the kitchen, waving a flyer in their hands. Mama, our school is having a special day this weekend. Family day. We get to bring our parents, and we get to do games and sing songs together. Her heart sank. The twins jumped around, chattering about who would come, their innocent joy cutting her with every word. Finally, the boy asked, "Can Uncle Raj come with us? And maybe that man we saw the other night, too?" He looked like, "U.S., is he family?" She froze, her breath caught. The twins were not letting go of that memory. Their little hearts had already connected the dots, and their questions were only growing louder. That night, she called Sundar. Her voice was calm, but filled with weight. "They keep asking about you. I can't keep lying. I think it's time." Sundar's heart skipped. Time for what? Her silence answered for her. 3 days later, Sundar found himself walking through the gates of the twins' school for family day. Parents filled the grounds, laughter echoed, and children ran across the fields. Sundar's hands trembled slightly. As he carried a small gift bag to simple books he had picked for the twins, books he hoped would mean something to them. And then he saw them. His ex-wife standing by the playground. The twins beside her, waving excitedly when they spotted him. Raj stood there too, his expression unreadable, his arms crossed as if guarding the fragile line of peace between them all. The boy ran up to Sundar first, his eyes wide. "You came." Sundar knelt, his eyes misting as he smiled. "Of course I did. I wouldn't miss it for the world." The girl approached slowly, shy but curious. "Mama said you're special." Sundar swallowed hard, his voice soft. "And you're very special to me too." They laughed and pulled him toward the games, their small hands holding his, and for the first time, Sundar felt the warmth of fatherhood, not as an idea, not as a possibility, but as a living, breathing truth. As the day went on, Sundar joined in their games, cheered them on, and even sat on the grass reading stories to them while other parents watched. His heart ached with every moment he had missed, but it also filled with a joy he had never known before. But just as the day seemed to offer healing, a storm was brewing. Raj stood back, watching everything, his jaw tight. Finally, he pulled Sundar aside, his voice sharp but low. Don't think this changes everything. One day of fun doesn't make you their father. You left. I stayed, and I won't let you break their world apart. Sundar's chest tightened, but he looked Raj in the eye with steady resolve. I'm not here to erase you, Raj. I'm here to give them the truth. I'm here because I can't stay away anymore. I won't. Raj's face darkened. And what happens when your world pulls you away again? What happens when business matters more than birthdays? I won't let them be abandoned twice. The words cut deep because they carried truth. Sundar knew he had failed once, but he also knew he could not fail again. Before he could reply, a teacher called the children to the stage for their performance. The twins stood together, holding hands, their eyes scanning the crowd. And when they spotted Sundar, they waved, their faces glowing with pride. And in that moment, Sundar realized something powerful. No matter what battles lay ahead, no matter what Raj or anyone else believed, the twins already felt the connection. They already saw him. But as the children began to sing, Sundar noticed something strange. A man in the back of the crowd, hidden beneath a cap, was watching the twins too closely. His eyes fixed on them in a way that made Sundar's chest tighten with unease. It wasn't Raj. It wasn't anyone he recognized. And when the man pulled out his phone and snapped a picture of the twins, Sundar felt his entire body go cold. Sundar's heart froze as he saw the man in the cap take another picture of the twins. The music of the children's performance continued, innocent and cheerful, but to Sundar it sounded distant, muffled, as if he were underwater. His instincts screamed that something was wrong. He had spent years making decisions that shaped industries, but at that moment, nothing mattered more than protecting those children. He moved through the crowd quietly but quickly, weaving between parents, until he stood closer to the man. The stranger noticed Sundar approaching and lowered his phone. Their eyes met for a brief second, and Sundar saw something cold there, something calculated. Then, without a word, the man turned and began walking away, disappearing into the crowd. Sundar single quotes. Pulse raced. He could have followed, could have demanded answers, but the twins' voices pulled him back. They were finishing their song, their faces glowing with pride, their small hands waving toward the crowd. When their eyes found Sundar, they smiled wider, and his heart softened instantly. Whatever danger that man represented, Sundar knew his first responsibility was here with him. When the performance ended, the children ran to him. The boy clutched his hand tightly. Did you see us, mister? He asked, his voice bubbling with excitement. Sundar knelt, his eyes glistening. I saw everything. You were amazing. The girl hugged him suddenly, her small arms wrapping around his neck. Sundar held her close, feeling her heartbeat, and for a moment the world felt still. But Raj had seen the man too. He approached Sundar afterward, his face tight with concern. Did you notice him? He asked in a low voice. Sundar nodded. Yes, he was watching them. He took pictures. Raj's eyes hardened. I don't know who he is, but I've seen him once before, outside the house. I thought he was just passing by, but now... His words trailed off, his jaw clenched. Sundar felt a surge of protective fear. We need to find out who he is. His ex-wife, who had overheard, pressed a hand to her lips, her face pale. What if he's connected to my work? I've been helping at the shelter. Sometimes we deal with troubled people. I didn't want to worry you, but now... Her voice shook. The rest of the day passed in a haze. Sundar stayed close to the twins, watching every shadow, every face in the crowd. Raj did the same, his protective instincts stronger than ever. Though tension still lingered between them, for the first time they moved with a kind of unspoken unity. Both men, despite their differences, shared one thing: love for the children. That night, Sundar returned home, but he could not rest. He sat at his desk, staring at the picture of the twins he had taken on his phone earlier that day. Their laughter echoed in his memory, but so did the image of that stranger's cold eyes. He called a contact he trusted deeply, someone in security. He explained briefly, asking them to check surveillance footage from the school to identify the man. By morning, he had an answer. The stranger had a record petty theft, fraud, and suspected ties to a small group that targeted wealthy families. The thought made Sundar's stomach twist. Whether the man had been after money or something worse, the twins were at risk. He wasted no time. The next evening, Sundar returned to his ex-wife's home. She looked startled to see him, but when he explained what he had learned, her face drained of color. Raj was there too, and for once, his sharp tone softened. "We'll protect them, all of us, together." The words hung in the air, surprising even Raj himself. Sundar felt a flicker of respect. Raj had every reason to push him away, yet in this moment of danger, he chose unity over pride. Over the next week, Sundar stayed closer to the twins than ever before. He walked with them to school, sat with them during their games, read them stories in the evening when their mother allowed. Each moment was a gift he had once lost, now rediscovered. And though the children still didn't know the full truth, they felt the bond. The boy began slipping his hand into Sundar's naturally. The girl started calling him Uncle Sundar, her shy voice carrying innocence that melted his heart. One evening, as the sun set and painted the sky in soft oranges and pinks, the twin sat with him in the garden. The boy looked at him seriously, his small brow furrowed. "You feel like family, are you?" Sundar's chest tightened. He glanced at their mother, who was standing by the doorway, her hands folded. She gave him a small nod and unspoken permission. He turned back to the twins, his voice gentle but firm. "Yes, I'm your father." The words hung in the air, heavy and beautiful. The twins blinked in surprise. The girl tilted her head, her eyes wide. "You're our papa?" Sundar's eyes filled with tears. "Yes, I should have been here all along. I'm so sorry I wasn't, but I promise I'll never leave you again." The twins were silent for a moment, their young minds processing the truth. Then, slowly, they moved closer, wrapping their small arms around him. Sundar held them tightly, tears streaming down his face as he whispered, "I love you, more than anything." Their mother watched from the doorway, her eyes glistening, her heart torn between the pain of the past and the healing unfolding before. Raj stood a few steps behind, his arms crossed, but his expression softer than ever. Later that night, when the children were asleep, she and Sundar sat together in the quiet living room. "They accepted you," she said softly. Sundar nodded, his voice low. "I'll spend the rest of my life proving I deserve them." She studied him for a long moment. "You've changed. You're not the man who left." Sundar's eyes lowered. "Pain changes people. Regret changes people. But love makes them better. I can't change the past, but I can build the future for them." Raj, who had been listening quietly, finally spoke. His voice carried no anger this time, only honesty. "If you mean what you say, then you'll stay. Not just for a day, not just for a season. Stay as their father, truly. Because if you walk away again, it will break them." Sundar met his gaze. "I won't. Not again." And for the first time, Raj extended his hand. Sundar shook it, a silent agreement passing between them, two men, different in history but united in purpose.